The great hall of the Galactic Council was filled with beings from across the stars. There were creatures with scales and creatures with feathers. There were beings made of light and beings made of stone. 47 different species had gathered in this ancient chamber, and all of them believed they were the masters of the universe. High Arbiter Vexolin stood at the center of the room. He was tall and gray, with eyes that had seen 1,000 years pass. His voice echoed through the chamber as he spoke the words that would change everything. It is the decision of this council that the species known as humans are hereby declared subjects of the Torvathi Dominion. Their worlds, their ships, and their people shall serve the greater powers of this galaxy. Ambassador Linda Morrison stood alone at her small podium. She was a woman of 53 years with gray eyes and silver hair. She had spent her entire life preparing for this moment, though no one in the chamber knew it. "May I ask why this decision was made?" she asked calmly. Councillor. Drathmer of the Torvathi leaned forward. He was a reptilian creature with dark green scales and teeth like knives. His species had ruled over dozens of worlds for thousands of years. They had crushed countless civilizations beneath their feet. "Your species is young and weak," Drathmar said with amusement. "You have existed for only 200,000 cycles. Your fleet has only 47 ships. You control only 12 worlds. By every measure, you are nothing." Linda nodded slowly. "And if we refuse to become subjects?" Laughter filled the chamber. The sound was strange and alien, clicks and whistles and deep rumbles, but the meaning was clear. They thought she was foolish. Refuse? Vexolin tilted his head. "Little human, the Torvathi alone have 8,000 warships. The combined power of this council exceeds 100,000 vessels. What could your 47 ships do against such force?" Linda reached into her pocket and pulled out a small device. She pressed a single button and spoke clearly. "This is Ambassador Morrison. Authorization code, Omega 77. Execute protocol revelation." "What is the meaning of this?" Drathmer demanded. Linda smiled, and for the first time her calm face showed something else beneath. Something old and patient and completely unafraid. "Counselors, there has been a misunderstanding. You see, we never said we only had 47 ships. You assumed that, and we simply never told you the truth." The holographic display in the center of the chamber flickered. The image of Earth disappeared. In its place appeared a map of the entire galaxy. Red dots began appearing across the display. First dozens, then hundreds, then thousands. "What you are seeing," Linda continued, "is the real position of our fleet. 23,000 warships spread across every part of known space. We have been among you for much longer than you know. We have been watching, learning, waiting." The chamber erupted into chaos. Creatures shouted and screamed. Some tried to flee. Others simply stared in disbelief. Far away, on the bridge of the carrier Relentless, Admiral Kevin Brooks watched the transmission with quiet satisfaction. He was 61 years old, built like a man who had spent his whole life preparing for exactly this moment. "All ships, this is Fleet Command," he spoke into the communication system. "Decloak and hold position. Weapons offline, but ready. Let them see us. Let them understand." Across the galaxy, human vessels appeared from nowhere. They had been hidden near Council homeworlds, near important stations, along major trade routes. They were not the small, simple ships the galaxy had seen before. These were warships, sleek and deadly. Built over 300 years of secret work, back on Nexus Prime, Vexolin stared at the display with genuine fear. It was a feeling he had not experienced in centuries. "This is impossible," he whispered. "Your species was only discovered 80 years ago. You could not have built this in 80 years. "You discovered us 80 years ago," Linda corrected him. "We discovered you 312 years ago. We watched your council make 17 species into slaves during that time. We saw what you do to those you consider beneath you. We saw the Koreshi people forced into chains. We saw the Mondavi lose their homeworld. We saw the Pelanak work to death in your minds." She stepped forward, her eyes meeting Vexolin's. We decided very early on that this would never happen to us. So we hid what we could really do. We pretended to be weak newcomers, and we prepared. Drathmer rose from his seat, his scales turning red with anger. This changes nothing. You may have more ships than we thought, but the combined might of the Council still exceeds your numbers. You cannot defeat us all. Linda's smile did not change. Counselor, you still do not understand. We do not want to fight you. War would be wasteful and cruel, and we are not a cruel species. She pointed to the display. Look more carefully at where our ships are. Notice their positions. The counselors studied the map. Slowly, understanding appeared on their faces. Your food production facilities, Linda said. Your fuel stations. Your communication networks. Your water treatment plants. Your medical supply centers. We are not positioned to attack you. We are positioned to help you or to stop helping you, depending on what you decide next. You would starve us? Vexilon asked. I would prefer not to, but understand this clearly. Humanity will not be slaves. We will not be subjects. If the only way to ensure our freedom is to show you that attacking us would cost you everything, then we will show you. But we would much rather be your partners than your enemies. She paused, letting her words sink in. So here's my offer. Take back your declaration. Recognize humanity as a free species with full rights on this council. In exchange, we will share our technology, our resources, and our friendship. We will help you build a galaxy where no species is enslaved. And if we refuse, Drathmar growled, then you will learn what 300 years of fear and preparation have made us capable of. And I promise you, Counselor, that is not a lesson you will enjoy. The chamber fell silent. Vexolin looked at the display, at the thousands of human ships surrounding everything his civilization needed to survive. He thought of the centuries his people had spent building their empire through force. He thought of all the species they had crushed, and for the first time, he understood what it felt like to be on the other side. Linda stood tall and waited. She had played her hand. Now it was time to see how the galaxy would respond. In the silence of the Great Hall, the future of 1,000 worlds hung in the balance. 3 days had passed since the confrontation in the council chamber. The Galactic Council had not yet responded to humanity's demands, but they had not attacked either. Human ships remained at their positions, silent watchers in the darkness of space. On the Toravathi homeworld of Draken VII, Supreme Commander Kethrel called an emergency meeting of the military leaders. The chamber was carved from black volcanic stone. Flickering lights cast shadows across the faces of the officers who had gathered. We must strike now, General Vernash insisted, slamming his fist on the stone table. Every moment we wait allows them to grow stronger. Our honor demands action. Our honor demands that we not destroy our people, Admiral Silvera replied. She was older than most present, her scales marked with the pale signs of age. I have studied their fleet positions. They are not lying. Their strategy is the work of minds that have studied us for centuries. They're humans, Vernash spat. Soft creatures with short lives and weak bodies. They cannot match us. They already have matched us, Kethrel said quietly. His voice silenced the room. They matched us without firing a single weapon. They showed capabilities we never suspected. That alone should make us careful. He rose from his seat and walked to the window. Below, millions of Toravathi went about their daily lives, not knowing how close their empire had come to disaster. I want complete information on the humans, Kethrel ordered. Everything we have. Everything we can find. I want to know how this happened. 300 light-years away aboard the human carrier Vigilant, Captain Maria Santos reviewed the latest reports. She was 44 years old, with dark hair and eyes that missed nothing. They are searching for information, her intelligence officer reported. Lieutenant Daniel Price was young but brilliant. Torvathi agents are accessing every database they can reach, trying to understand how we fooled them. Let them search, Maria said. They will find only what we want them to find. Captain, there is something else. We have found messages suggesting the Torvathi are trying to form a coalition. They are reaching out to the Vex Confederation and the Sholkai Empire. Maria nodded slowly. We expected this. The council members may be rivals, but they all want to keep things the way they are. A humanity that cannot be controlled threatens all of them. Should we be worried? Worried, yes. Afraid, no. Maria pulled up a strategic display. Our planners predicted this response. That is why we positioned backup fleets along their likely meeting routes. Every move they make has already been expected. On Nexus Prime, Ambassador Linda Morrison had not left her quarters since the declaration. She spent her time reading reports, talking with Fleet Command, and preparing for the next step. A sound at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. The door opened to reveal an unexpected visitor. Counselor Mirabelle of the Elysian Collective stood in the corridor. Her skin glowed. With soft blue light, the Elysians were among the oldest species in the Council, peaceful beings who had survived by being useful rather than powerful. Ambassador Morrison, "May I speak with you?" Linda waved her inside. "Counselor, I did not expect a visit from the Elysians." Mirabelle moved with smooth grace. "The Elysians have long memories, Ambassador. We remember when we too were declared subjects 7,000 years ago. We remember the suffering that followed before we found our place. And yet you voted to enslave us. You voted as we were expected to vote. As we have always voted. Survival sometimes requires doing things we do not like." Miravelle's large eyes studied Linda. "But I did not come to discuss the past. I came to warn you." Linda's face grew serious. "Warn us of what?" "The Torvathi are not used to being challenged. Their pride will not allow them to simply accept your terms, no matter how smart it would be. Supreme Commander Kethrel is a reasonable being, but he answers to a high council that values honor above wisdom. You believe they will attack despite the odds? I believe they will look for a middle path, something that lets them save face while avoiding direct war." Mirabelle paused. "There is a reason the galaxy has never seen the Torvathi's full military power. They have weapons that have not been used in over 3,000 years. Weapons that were banned by treaties your species never signed." Linda felt cold despite herself. "What kind of weapons?" "The kind that destroy worlds, Ambassador. The kind that were used once, long ago, to show why the Torvathi should never be challenged. They call it the Annihilator Protocol." On Draken the 7th, Kethrol stood before the High Council of the Torvathi Dominion. The 7 ancient rulers who controlled his civilization looked down from their high seats, their eyes cold and calculating. "Your recommendation, Supreme Commander?" the First Elder asked. Kethrel had spent 3 days preparing for this moment. He had studied every piece of information, talked with his best strategists, and reached a conclusion he knew the Council would not want to hear. "Honored Elders, I recommend that we accept the human terms," the chamber erupted. Elders shouted objections, their voices mixing together in anger. "Silence," the First Elder commanded. The room grew quiet. "Explain yourself, Commander." "The humans have shown abilities far beyond what we expected. Their fleet positions cancel out our greater numbers. A direct fight would result in massive losses and terrible damage to our systems. Even if we won, we would be so weak that our rivals on the Council would move against us." "You would have us surrender to mammals?" The Third Elder snarled. "I would have us survive and change. The humans do not want to destroy us. They want recognition and partnership. Giving them these things costs us a little while, keeping everything we have." The First Elder leaned forward. "And if we were to use the Annihilator Protocol?" Kethrel felt his blood go cold. "Honored Elder, the Annihilator has not been used in 3,000 years. Using it would break every treaty we have signed, treaties signed with species that prove they cannot protect themselves. The humans have proved they can. Perhaps it is time to remind the galaxy what happens to those who challenge the Torvathi. With respect, we do not know if the Annihilator would even work against human defenses. They have beaten everything else we have. It is not meant for their defenses, Commander." The First Elder's smile was cold. "It is meant for their worlds. Their ships cannot be everywhere at once, but they have only 12 colonies. How long would they stay brave if one of those colonies simply stopped existing?" Kethrel stood frozen. He had served the Dominion his entire life. He had done things he was not proud of in the name of Torvathi power. But this was different. This was murder on a scale he could not accept. Honored elders, I must strongly advise against this. Using planet-killing weapons would turn the entire council against us, not just the humans. The council will do what it always does, the first elder said. It will complain and then forget. The other species will see what happens to those who challenge us and will remember their place. He raised his hand, and a display appeared, showing a small human colony world called New Providence. Population 4.2 million. This world is far from their main fleet. It is poorly defended. It is perfect for our demonstration. Kethril looked at the display. At the innocent planet full of beings who had done nothing wrong, except belong to a species that refused to kneel, await your orders. Honored elders, he said, his voice hollow and his heart heavy with dread. The Annihilator was not a single weapon, but a fleet. 12 massive vessels, each one capable of destroying an entire world, had been hidden in the depths of Torvathi space for 3,000 years. Now, they moved toward New Providence, their crews sworn to silence. Their mission known only to a few. Commander Jethral, the youngest captain in the Annihilator fleet, stood on the bridge of the lead vessel. He was 60 years old by Torvathi standards, barely an adult. Chosen for his complete loyalty and his habit of not asking questions. Commander, we will reach the target system in 6 hours, his navigation officer reported. Jethral nodded, keeping his face calm. Inside, he struggled with something he had never felt before. Doubt. He had been raised on stories of Torvathi greatness. He had been taught that other species existed to serve or die. But during the journey, he had studied the humans. He had read their history, their books, their ideas. They were not the simple savages he had expected. They had suffered diseases and wars and near destruction, yet they had survived. They had hurt each other terribly, yet they had also created beauty and wonder. They were flawed and violent and emotional, but they were also tough and creative and surprisingly kind. And in 6 hours, he was going to help kill 4 million of them. A New Providence. Governor Samuel Hayes spoke to his colony through an emergency broadcast. He was 63 years old, a former engineer who had helped build this world from nothing into a thriving community. Citizens, you have all been told about the current situation with the Galactic Council. I want to assure you that the fleet knows about the threat to our colony and is working to protect us. In truth, Samuel knew their protection was limited. The nearest human warships were days away, positioned to threaten more important targets. New Providence had always been considered too small to need major defenses. Deputy Governor Amy Collins stood beside him as he finished speaking. Sam, I just got word from Fleet Command. They have detected something unusual moving through Torvathi deep space. Something big is coming our way. How big? They do not know. It is using some kind of hiding technology we have never seen before. But based on the energy readings, we are talking about something massive. Samuel closed his eyes. He had built this colony with his own hands. He had watched it grow from a few small buildings to a world of cities and farms and families. The thought of losing it all was almost too much to bear. Begin evacuation, he said quietly. Get as many people off-world as possible, Sam. We have maybe 12 hours before whatever this is arrives. We cannot evacuate 4 million people in 12 hours. Then we evacuate as many as we can. His voice grew hard. And we pray that someone in the fleet can figure out how to stop whatever's coming. Aboard the carrier Relentless. Admiral Kevin Brooks received the intelligence report with growing alarm. You're telling me the Torvathi have planet-killing weapons we never knew about? Intelligence Officer Laura Bennett nodded grimly. We knew they had powerful orbital weapons, but this is different. Based on the energy we are detecting, these vessels could crack a planet's core. They are extinction-level threats, sir. Kevin stared at the display showing the 12 ships moving toward New Providence. His entire strategy had been built on the idea that the Council species would not risk their own systems for pride. He had never imagined they would go straight to genocide. How long until our nearest ships can get there? 42 hours at best? New Providence will be destroyed long before we arrive. Kevin felt the weight of command crushing him. He had spent his entire career preparing for this fight, planning for every possibility he could imagine. But he had failed to imagine this. "Get me Ambassador Morrison," he ordered, "and contact every ship within response range, no matter what they are doing. We need options." On Nexus Prime, Linda Morrison received the news with cold fury. "They are actually going to do it," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "They are going to murder 4 million people because they cannot accept being challenged. Ambassador, what do you want us to do?" Her aide asked. Linda thought of Samuel Hayes, whom she had known for 30 years. She thought of the children on New Providence, the families who had built their lives on that distant world. She thought of everything humanity had worked for, everything they had hoped to achieve through careful planning, and she thought of what they would become if they let this happen without fighting back. "Contact the Council," she said. "Every member. I want an emergency meeting in 1 hour. And tell Fleet Command to prepare Protocol Judgment." "Ambassador, Protocol Judgment is an attack on civilian targets. If we use it now, millions of Torvathi civilians will die." "I know what it is." Linda's eyes were hard. "I also know what happens if we show weakness now. Every species in the galaxy is watching. If we let the Torvathi destroy one of our worlds without consequences, we prove that our threats are empty. Everything we built falls apart." She paused, fighting with the weight of what she was about to order. "But do not launch yet. Give me 1 hour to try talking first. If I can stop this without blood, I will. But if I cannot—" She did not finish the sentence. The emergency council meeting came together faster than anyone expected. Representatives of 47 species gathered, many of them clearly uncomfortable with what was happening. Linda stood alone at her podium as she had 3 days before. But now her calm manner was gone, replaced by something colder. "Counselors, I have called this meeting to address what is about to happen. The Torvathi Dominion has sent 12 weapons of mass destruction toward our colony world of New Providence. Their plan is to murder 4 million innocent people to prove a point about their power." Whispers spread through the chamber. "This is Torvathi internal military business," Drathmer said dismissively. "It is not a matter for the Council. It becomes a matter for the Council when it involves genocide against a species you claim to have conquered." Linda's voice cut like a blade. "But let me be clear. I did not call this meeting to ask for your help. Your help would come too late anyway. I called this meeting to tell you what happens next." She activated a display showing Torvathi space. Red targeting marks appeared over a dozen worlds. "New Providence is destroyed. We will respond with overwhelming force against Torvathi civilian systems. Their food production will stop. Their power will end. Their hospitals will go dark. The death count will be in the hundreds of millions." Shocked silence filled the chamber. "You would not dare," Vexolin breathed. "I would not want to," Linda corrected him. "There is a big difference. I have spent my entire life trying to prevent exactly this kind of disaster. But you have given me no choice." She turned to face the entire council. "Every species here has benefited from the way things are. You have enjoyed peace and wealth, while others suffered. You told yourselves it was necessary, that the strong must rule the weak. But now you see where that thinking leads. It leads to weapons that can kill worlds being used against civilians. It leads to revenge attacks that will kill hundreds of millions. It leads to a galaxy on fire." She paused, letting her words sink in. "You can stop this. If this council acts now, together, to condemn the Torvathi, and demand they call back their weapons, there may still be time. But if you stay silent, if you let this happen, then you share the blame, and you will share the consequences." Mirabelle of the Elysians rose from her seat. "I move that this council immediately condemn the Torvathi military action and demand the immediate recall of all weapons sent against human territories." "Seconded," called a voice from the Sholkai group. Drathmar jumped to his feet. "This is an internal Torvathi matter. The council has no right." "The council has whatever right we choose to give it," another voice called out. "We created this body to prevent exactly this kind of disaster." The chamber exploded into heated argument. Species that had been enemies for thousands of years found themselves on the same side, united by the understanding that unchecked violence threatened them all. But time was running out, and far away, 12 ships of death continued their journey, toward a world full of innocent people who had no idea what was coming for them. The Annihilator fleet had reached the New Providence system. 12 massive vessels came out of faster-than-light travel and began moving toward the blue-green world. Below, Commander Jethro stared at the planet on his screen. He could see the lights of cities on the dark side, the patterns of civilization created by beings who would soon stop existing. "Commander, we are in position. Waiting for your order to begin the attack?" Jethro found his hand shaking. He had killed before, in battles against pirates and rebels. But those had been fighters, beings who had chosen to take up arms. The people below had made no such choice. "Commander?" He opened his mouth to give the order, and then his sensor officer spoke words that changed everything. "We're detecting multiple contacts coming from behind the planet's moon. Human vessels? They were hiding where we could not see them." "How many? 342 ships, sir. Carriers, destroyers, and something else. Something we have never seen before." On the bridge of the carrier Dawn's Light, Captain Eric Palmer watched the Annihilator fleet with cold determination. He was 51 years old, a veteran who had spent decades preparing for this moment. "All ships, this is Fleet Command. We have one job. Stop those weapons from firing on New Providence. Any ship that reaches attack position must be destroyed immediately." "Captain, they outweigh us by 20 times, his tactical officer reported. "Those vessels are enormous. Size is not everything." Eric smiled grimly. "Bring the Guardians online." The Guardians were humanity's secret weapon, developed over 200 years in total secrecy. They were not ships in the normal sense, but defense platforms, each one able to create a field that could push away or absorb incoming fire. 24 of them turned on around New Providence, forming a protective shell around the planet. "Sir, the Annihilator vessels are trying to lock weapons on the planet. Let them try. Launch all fighters. I want our people in their faces before they can get a clean shot." Space around New Providence erupted into chaos. Human fighters swarmed the massive Torvathi weapons platforms. Their small size made them hard targets for weapons designed to destroy worlds. Guardian platforms created overlapping defense fields that turned aside the Annihilator's first shots. "Commander." Jethro watched in disbelief as his fleet's first attack spread harmlessly against the human defenses. "Impossible," he whispered. "Nothing should be able to stop the Annihilator. Commander, we are taking fighter attacks on multiple vessels. Our defense systems cannot track them all." Jethro made a decision. "Signal the fleet. Focus all fire on a single point in their defense network. We will overwhelm them with concentrated power." It was a smart tactical choice. The Annihilator fleet redirected their weapons. 12 world-killing beams coming together on a single Guardian platform. The platform held for 3 seconds before it overloaded and exploded in a brilliant flash of light. "We have broken through their defense," Jethro's weapons officer reported. Adjusting aim for planetary attack, on Dawn's Light, Eric watched the Guardians' destruction with grim acceptance. "Fill the gap. Move Guardians 7 and 12 to cover the hole. All ships focus fire on their lead vessel. Captain, if we lose another Guardian, they will have a clear shot at the planet. Then we do not lose another Guardian." The battle grew more intense. Human ships threw themselves at the Annihilator fleet with desperate courage. Their weapons hit the massive vessels but failed to cause serious damage. The Torvathi ships were simply too big, too heavily armored. But they were also slow. Eric noticed it first. The Annihilator vessels were built for destroying planets, not fighting in close combat. Their weapons had minimum ranges. Their targeting systems were made for hitting things that did not move. "All ships, get close. Get inside their weapon range." It was a dangerous gamble. At close range, the human ships would be open to the Annihilator's smaller weapons. But they would also be inside the range where the planet killers worked. The human fleet surged forward on Nexus Prime. The council debate had reached a critical point. A majority had spoken in favor of condemning the Torvathi action, but Drathmir and his allies were blocking any formal vote. "You cannot force us to call back our forces," Drathmir insisted. "We are a free power. We will not be told what to do by lesser species." Linda received a secure message and read it with shaking hands. Her face went pale. Counselors, I have just learned that human forces are fighting the Torvathi Annihilator fleet at New Providence. The battle is happening right now. The chamber fell silent. Our ships are fighting to protect 4 million innocent lives. They are dying as we speak. And still you debate? She looked directly at Drathmar. Your weapons are killing my people. Not soldiers who chose to fight, but families, children, people who wanted nothing more than to live their lives in peace. Her voice broke slightly, then hardened. And you speak of freedom. You speak of honor. What honor is there in murdering civilians? What freedom is worth the lives of millions? For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Miravel rose again. I call for an immediate vote. Any member who votes against this will be considered a supporter of genocide and will face the results of that choice. The vote was called. One by one, species who had spent thousands of years as rivals voted together. The motion passed by huge numbers, with only the Torvathi and 2 close allies voting against. This council demands the immediate recall of all Torvathi forces attacking human territories, Vexolin announced, his voice heavy. Failure to obey will result in removal from this council and action by member species. At New Providence, the battle had reached its peak. The human fleet H had lost 47 ships, their wreckage floating among the stars. But they had prevented the Annihilator fleet from reaching attack position for over 2 hours. Commander Jethro received the council's order with mixed feelings. Relief that he would not have to murder millions. Shame that his people had been condemned before the entire galaxy. And something else. Something he could not quite name. Sir, Fleet Command is ordering us to stop fighting and withdraw. Jethro looked at New Providence one last time. The planet's defenders were still fighting, still dying to protect their world. They had known they could not win, and they had fought anyway. Accept the order, he said quietly. All ships, stop firing and prepare to leave. On dawn's light, Eric Palmer watched the Annihilator fleet begin its retreat. He felt no joy, only tiredness and grief. 47 ships, nearly 8,000 lives. Signal New Providence, he ordered. Tell them they are safe. On the planet below, Governor Samuel Hayes received the message. He fell to his knees and wept, surrounded by the people he had prepared to die with. Above them, the lights of human ships burned bright against the darkness. Silent guardians who had given everything to protect strangers they would never meet. The battle was over. But the war for the soul of the galaxy had just begun. 1 month had passed since the Battle of New Providence. The galaxy had changed in ways no one had expected. The Torvathi Dominion had been thrown out of the Galactic Council. Their allies had abandoned them, understanding that being connected to a species willing to use world-killing weapons against civilians was too dangerous. Their economy had collapsed as other species refused to trade with them. On Draken the Seventh, the High Council had been overthrown. Supreme Commander Kethril had led a military takeover. The First Elder and his supporters had been arrested and put on trial for crimes against all living beings. Their punishment was exile to a barren world where they would spend the rest of their lives thinking about what their pride had cost. But the true change was happening in places no one expected. Ambassador Linda Morrison sat across from Kethril in a private meeting room on neutral territory. The Torvathi commander looked different than he had a month ago. Older, more tired, but also somehow more at peace. You asked for this meeting, Linda said. I am curious why. Kethril was quiet for a long moment. I have spent my entire life believing that strength was the only thing that mattered. That the strong had the right to rule the weak. That kindness was weakness. He looked up at her with eyes that held real pain. And then I watched your people die to protect a world. I watched ships throw themselves against weapons they could not beat, knowing they would not survive. And I understood that I had been wrong about everything. Wrong about what exactly? About strength. True strength is not the ability to destroy. It is the willingness to give yourself for something greater. Your people understood that. My people forgot it long ago. Linda considered his words. What do you want from us, Commander? I want to learn. I want my people to learn. We have been tyrants for so long that we have forgotten there is another way. He paused. I am not asking for forgiveness. What we almost did cannot be forgiven. I am asking for a chance to become something better. On New Providence. Governor Samuel Hayes stood at the memorial that had been built for the defenders who died protecting the colony. 8,000 names were carved into the black stone, each one representing a life given so that others might live. Amy Collins stood beside him. The rebuilding is going faster than expected. We should have everything fixed within 6 months. Good. That is good. Samuel's voice was distant. He was not thinking about buildings. Sam, the memorial ceremony is about to start. The Admiral is waiting. Samuel nodded and walked to the stage where Admiral Kevin Brooks stood. The Admiral looked different than he had a month ago. The weight of command had always shown in his bearing, but now there was something else. Something softer. Governor Hayes, thank you for letting us hold this ceremony here. This is where they died, Admiral. There is no better place. Kevin stepped up to speak and looked out at the crowd. Thousands had gathered, humans and aliens alike. Species that had been enemies were standing side by side, brought together by what had happened. We gather today to honor those who gave their lives at the Battle of New Providence. 8,000 men and women who faced impossible odds and refused to give up. They did not fight for glory or conquest. They fought to protect innocent lives. They fought because it was right. He paused, gathering his thoughts. For 300 years, humanity prepared for this moment. We built our fleet in secret. We positioned ourselves to threaten the galaxy's systems. We believed that fear was the only language the galaxy would understand. But the defenders of New Providence taught us something different. They taught us that courage matters more than fear. That sacrifice matters more than strategy. That the willingness to die for something greater than yourself is the true measure of strength. He looked at the memorial. At the 8,000 names carved in stone, because of their sacrifice, the galaxy has changed. Species that were enemies are becoming friends. Governments that ruled through fear are starting to change. The council that declared us subjects is now asking for our partnership. This is not the galaxy we expected. It is better. And it exists because 8,000 people decided that protecting 4 million lives was worth their own. In the crowd, Commander Jethro listened to the human admiral's words. He had come to New Providence against the advice of his fellow officers, risking his life to pay respect to those he had nearly murdered. Beside him stood a human woman named Patricia Long, a survivor who had lost her husband in the battle. She had agreed to meet with him, to hear his apology face to face. I do not expect forgiveness, Jethro said quietly. I am not sure I deserve it. Patricia was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice carrying grief and something else. Something that might have been hope. My husband died protecting our world from your weapons. He knew he would not survive, and he went anyway. Do you know what his last message to me said? Jethro shook his head, said he hoped that someday the beings who sent those weapons would understand why we had to fight. He said he hoped they would learn to be better. She looked at the Toravathi commander. Are you learning? I am trying. My people are trying. It is hard to unlearn centuries of pride and cruelty, but we are trying. Patricia nodded slowly. Then my husband's hope was not wasted. The ceremony ended as the sun set over New Providence. Admiral Brooks spoke the final words. Let this memorial stand as a reminder of what happens when pride beats wisdom, a reminder of what courage really means, and a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope for something better. As the crowd broke up, Linda Morrison found herself standing beside Miravel of the Elysians. Your species has done something remarkable, Miravel said. You have changed the galaxy without conquering it. We did not do it alone. And the change is not finished. There is still so much work to do. There always is. Miravel's glowing skin shone softly in the fading light. But for the first time in 7,000 years, I believe the work might actually succeed. Linda looked up at the stars. At the vast galaxy full of species still learning to trust each other, the first elder was right about one thing, she said. We were never going to beat them with ships and weapons. But we never wanted to beat them. We wanted to change them. We wanted to prove that there was a better way. She smiled, tired but genuinely hopeful. And maybe, just maybe, we have. 10 years later, the Galactic Council chamber looked different. The single podium where humanity's ambassador had once stood alone had been replaced by a circle where all species met as equals. 17 species had been freed from slavery. The Torvathi were now leading efforts to find and help other lost peoples, and on New Providence the memorial still stood. Its 8,000 names a testament to those who had proven that the greatest strength was not the power to destroy, but the courage to sacrifice everything for strangers who would never know their names. The galaxy had learned to repent, and in doing so, it had learned to hope.